I'm Julia Sondu, showing you where development is happening. Please come and join us. The Arab plan to end Israel's war in Gaza, create Palestinian state. Part of the deal would include the release of hostages and new normalization agreements between Israel and Arab states. Arab states are collectively working to secure a ceasefire in the IDF's war on Gaza, which would see the release of Israeli hostages, further normalization of ties with Israel, and the creation of a Palestinian state, the Financial Times reported on Thursday. An Arab official told the source that the plans could entail Saudi Arabia normalizing ties with Israel, which has been a goal of both the United States and Israel for some time. Given the Israeli body politics today, normalization is maybe what can bring Israelis off the cliff, the official said. A condition of the deal would be that the US and European governments would formally agree to recognize a Palestinian state. The state would then be allowed full membership in the United Nations. The real issue is you need hope for Palestinians. It can't just be economic benefits or removal of symbols of occupation, the senior official told The Times. Israel-Saudi normalization goals. The plans come only days after Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan told the World Economic Forum, "We agree that regional peace includes peace for Israel, but that could only happen through peace for the Palestinians through a Palestinian state." Saudi-Israeli normalization had been progressing before October 7th. US and Saudi officials had been discussing Palestinian concessions to the deal, which would include a freeze in settlement expansions in the West Bank and boosting support for the West Bank's governing Palestinian Authority. A defiant Netanyahu says no one can halt Israel's war to crush Hamas, including the World Court. Israel will pursue its war against Hamas until victory and will not be stopped by anyone, including the World Court, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in a defiant speech Saturday, as the fighting in Gaza approached the 100-day mark. Netanyahu spoke after the International Court of Justice at The Hague held 2 days of hearings on South Africa's allegations, Palestinians, a charge Israel has rejected as libelous and hypocritical. South Africa asked the court to order Israel to halt its blistering air and ground offensive in an interim step. "No one will stop us, not The Hague, not the axis of evil and not anyone else," Netanyahu said in televised remarks Saturday evening, referring to Iran and its allied militias. The case before the World Court is expected to go on for years, but a ruling on interim steps could come within weeks. Court rulings are binding but difficult to enforce. Netanyahu made clear that Israel would ignore orders to halt the fighting, potentially deepening its isolation. Israel has been under growing international pressure to end the war, but has so far been shielded by US diplomatic and military support. Thousands took to the streets of Washington, London, Paris, Rome, Milan and Dublin on Saturday to demand an end to the war. Protesters converging on the White House held aloft signs questioning President Joe Biden's viability as a presidential candidate because of his staunch support for Israel during the war. Israel argues that ending the war means victory for Hamas, the Islamic militant group that has ruled Gaza since 2007 and is bent on Israel's destruction. Sunday marks 100 days of fighting. Fears of a wider conflagration have been palpable since the start of the war. New fronts quickly opened, with Iran-backed groups, Houthi rebels in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon and Iran-backed militias in Iraq and Syria, carrying out a range of attacks. From the start, the US increased its military presence in the region to deter an escalation. Following a Houthi campaign of drone and missile attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea, the US and Britain launched multiple airstrikes against the rebels Friday, and the US hit another site Saturday. In more fallout from the war, the World Court this week heard arguments on South Africa's complaint against Israel. South Africa cited the soaring hardships among Gaza civilians, along with inflammatory comments from Israeli leaders presented. In counter-arguments Friday, Israel asked for the case to be dismissed as meritless. Israel's defense argued that the country has the right to fight back against enemy, that South Africa had barely mentioned Hamas, and that it ignored what Israel considers attempts to mitigate civilian harm. Meanwhile, Netanyahu and his army chief, Herzl Halevi, said they have no immediate plans to allow the return of displaced Palestinians to northern Gaza, the initial focus of Israel's offensive. Fighting in the northern half has been scaled back, with forces now focusing on the southern city of Khan Yunis, though combat continues in parts of the north. Netanyahu said the issue had been raised by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken during his visit earlier this week. The Israeli leader said he told Blinken that we will not return residents to their homes when there is fighting. At the same time, Netanyahu said Israel would eventually need to close what he said were breaches along Gaza's border with Egypt. Over the years of an Israeli-Egyptian blockade, smuggling tunnels under Egypt-Gaza border had constituted a major supply line for Gaza. However, the border area, particularly the city of Rafah in southern Gaza, is packed with hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who had fled northern Gaza, and their presence would complicate any plans to widen Israel's ground offensive. "We will not end the war until we close this breach," Netanyahu said Saturday, adding that the government has not yet decided how to do that. In Gaza, where Hamas has put up stiff resistance to Israel's blistering air and ground campaign, the war continued unabated. The ministry said the total number of war wounded surpassed 60,000. Following an Israeli airstrike before dawn Saturday, video provided by Gaza's Civil Defense Department showed rescue workers searching through the twisted rubble of a building in Gaza City by flashlight. Israel has argued that Hamas is responsible for the high civilian casualties, saying its fighters make use of civilian buildings and launch attacks from densely populated urban areas. The Israeli military released a video Saturday that it said showed the destruction of 2 ready-to-use rocket-launching compounds in Al-Muharraka in central Gaza. A large grove of palm trees and some homes are seen in the frame. In the video, a rocket is being thrown into the air by the blast. The military said there had been dozens of launches ready to be used. The Arab plan to end Israel's war in Gaza, create Palestinian state. Part of the deal would include the release of hostages and new normalization agreements between Israel and Arab states. Arab states are collectively working to secure a ceasefire in the IDF's war on Gaza, which would see the release of Israeli hostages, further normalization of ties with Israel, and the creation of a Palestinian state. This is the end of our program today. See you on Intervlog same time tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates. Thank you for watching Intervlog. Thank you.